What's up YouTube, it's Ben. I'm in the final few weeks of 75 Hard and I'm giving it a final push with cutting weight, so I thought I would make this video. I hear a lot of people say I want to lose a few pounds or go on a cut, and I would have said this in the past and blindly cut carbs thinking that would do the trick. But I cringe thinking of my lack of knowledge when I was a teenager, so I want to make this video to make people aware that this is the process that they need to undergo. So, if you're going to execute a cut, you want the weight you lose to be fat, not muscle. And losing weight will depend on one law, and that law is calories in versus calories out. This is going to be the overarching theme throughout your efforts to lose weight on this cut. Anyway, once you're aware of this message, the next thing you need to do is find out how many calories a day you should be eating to be in a calorie deficit and therefore to lose weight. Calculators online or AI can help you with this based on your height and weight. These numbers are calculated based on your maintenance calories to stay the weight you are now, so they should be between 300 and 500 calories less than this to start off with. Losing weight is a numbers game, and therefore if you actually want to execute this cut successfully, I would recommend you have two sets of scales, one for your weight and one for your food, and weigh yourself first thing in the morning. This is the most reliable time after you've been sleeping and therefore in a fasted state to avoid any food or liquids influencing your weight. I'd recommend tracking your weight as often as you can and taking an average between days. This way you can measure your improvement week to week. I always avoided tracking food, it just seemed like effort, but now I know it's mandatory. So when it comes to tracking food, I think the most popular app that people use is MyFitnessPal. I know it's inconvenient to weigh and track food, but this makes the difference between achieving your goal and not. So spend a little time becoming familiar with using MyFitnessPal and it will take you that step closer to achieving your goal. And when it comes to macros, I'd say protein is the most important macro when it comes to cutting to improve your body composition. You want to be eating 1 to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight when cutting to preserve muscle. Unfortunately, in a calorie deficit, you cannot gain muscle, so you want to preserve the muscle that you've gained. Learning to track your food, or at least being roughly aware of the macros that you eat, will benefit you throughout life. So becoming knowledgeable about tracking your food may seem like a chore, but it's a skill that's going to help you going forward. The first time I actually tracked my food was when I decided to get a coach for 8 weeks a few years ago, and working with a coach was a game changer. I've used so much that I've learned from that point on. So once you're aware of how many calories you should be taking in and how to track them, the next thing you'll want to focus on is your calories out. Exercise. Presuming you want to tone up and lose body fat, and presuming you already have a training plan in place to acquire the muscle that you have now. This is a point that I want to emphasize because there's a common misconception with cutting. So the word stimulus is a word that helped me better understand building muscle. And when you're going through a cutting phase and you want to preserve muscle, your muscles need the same stimulus to maintain their size. You train with the same weights you were lifting. You don't train lighter or differently. That's a mental barrier that you need to overcome. As the weeks go on, you may possibly need less volume, but the weights or stimulus stay the same. So now we've covered the main law of cutting. I'm going to give some tips that I use to aid with the cutting process. And the first tip would be, if you can, fast. I think intermittent fasting is so effective when cutting for so many reasons. It's easier to stick to your calorie deficit if you're not eating across the whole day, and also it's harder to overeat. It improves your hormonal environment for fat loss, so there's internal changes, and it just makes life simpler. But it's not a magic trick. A calorie deficit is still the main driver of weight loss. The next tip that I use would be to use appetite suppressants like coffee or even 0-calorie drinks, as they have been shown to be effective in weight loss. I don't recommend drinking many of them though, and avoid caffeine after midday as it may affect sleep. The next tip would be to drink lots of water. It will help you feel better but also fuller during the cut. The next tip relates to food. Your food selection is key when cutting. Stick to whole foods because they're going to keep you fuller for longer and have better macros, and avoid calorie dense processed foods. And lastly, if you're going to do this properly, give yourself between 8 and 16 weeks and be gradual with the process. Stay consistent and gradual with weight loss to ensure you're successful. So hopefully you've learned something about cutting that you can implement in your life. I think cutting is all mental. It's a time of routine and discipline. I have 12 days left of 75 hard, during which I'm trying to cut. Wish me luck. Peace.
We're face to face in the crowd, laughing over shots, people lying us down.